For an episode that doesn't feature a massive dragon battle, House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode the 4th of may have quietly changed the entire direction of the Dance of the Dragons. By the time the credits roll, we're left with a shocking pregnancy, the rise of a dangerous new villain, a king who's been reduced to cleaning latrines, and a decision by Daemon that could have devastating consequences once the truth comes out. But beneath all those major moments is something even more important. This episode isn't really about battles. It's about power changing hands in ways that most characters don't even realize yet. Every conversation, every lie, and every choice pushes Westeros one step closer to complete destruction. So let's break down everything that happened, explain the ending, uncover the hidden details you may have missed, and discuss what all of this means for the war going forward. Unlike last week's episode, which spent nearly all of its runtime inside King's Landing following Rhaenyra's uneasy reign, Episode 4 opens the world back up again. Instead of focusing on a single storyline, we're jumping between nearly every major player involved in the dance, showing how each side believes they're moving closer to victory while actually becoming more divided than ever. The first stop is Tumbleton, and almost immediately the atmosphere feels completely different. Although Ormund Hightower successfully captured the town, peace never truly arrived. The war simply followed everyone there. Kat, Hugh Hammer's wife, escaped King's Landing hoping to find safety with her family, but instead she discovers that nowhere in Westeros is truly untouched anymore. Soldiers now occupy homes, civilians live under constant fear, and ordinary people are paying the price for a conflict they never chose to fight. It's a reminder that while kings and queens argue over the Iron Throne, it's the common people whose lives are destroyed first. This small detail has always been one of George R.R. Martin's greatest strengths. The nobles speak about honor, destiny, and bloodlines, but every political decision creates suffering far away from the castles where those choices are made. And Episode 4 never lets us forget that. Then comes one of the episode's biggest introductions. Daeron Targaryen finally begins stepping into the spotlight. After hearing about him for so long, viewers finally get a clearer picture of who Alicent's youngest son really is. At first glance, Daeron appears to be everything his older brothers never became. He's respectful, disciplined, patient, and surprisingly humble. But that's exactly what makes his storyline so fascinating. Because while many fans assumed Daeron escaped the toxic environment that created Aegon and Aemond, Episode 4 quietly reveals that he simply grew up under a different kind of influence. That influence is Ormund Hightower. And the more we learn about Ormund, the more obvious it becomes that Daeron hasn't escaped manipulation at all. He's simply been molded by someone with different ambitions. Throughout the episode, Ormund constantly reminds Daeron what strength should look like. He discourages kindness. He praises ruthlessness. He treats compassion almost like a weakness that must be trained out of the young prince. It's psychological conditioning disguised as mentorship. Unlike Viserys, who often struggled to discipline his children, Ormund controls Daeron through expectation and approval. Every compliment feels earned. Every mistake feels disappointing. And because Daeron desperately wants to live up to those expectations, he slowly becomes exactly the person Ormund wants him to be. That's what makes this relationship so unsettling. Ormund doesn't need to force Daeron into becoming ruthless. He convinces him that ruthlessness is what good rulers naturally become. The episode also raises another major question. Where is Aemond? Nobody seems to know. Ormund grows increasingly frustrated because his military campaign depends on Vhagar's presence. Without the largest dragon alive, holding Tumbleton becomes far more difficult. Meanwhile, Ser Criston Cole and Gwaine Hightower travel to Harrenhal hoping to find answers. Instead, they're greeted by Alice Rivers. And once again, she proves why she's one of the most mysterious characters in the series. Rather than giving direct answers, Alice seems to enjoy making everyone around her uncomfortable. She confirms that Aemond passed through Harrenhal after Rhaenyra captured King's Landing. But beyond that, nothing. No destination, no explanation, no clues. Even more surprising is the fact that nobody has managed to locate Vhagar either. Think about that for a moment. The largest dragon in Westeros has effectively vanished. That shouldn't even be possible. Yet somehow both dragon and rider have disappeared without leaving behind any reliable trail. Whether Alice genuinely knows more than she's saying or is simply enjoying watching everyone panic remains unclear. But one thing is certain. She's controlling the conversation without ever raising her voice. And that's exactly what makes her so dangerous. Back in King's Landing, Rhaenyra faces an entirely different kind of battle. Winning the throne was only the beginning. Now she has to prove she deserves to sit on it. One of the smartest details in this episode is how quickly reality begins replacing victory. The celebrations are over. Now come the impossible decisions. The treasury is nearly empty. The kingdom remains divided. Entire regions refuse to accept her authority. Even members of her own council don't always agree with her. So she begins rebuilding the government piece by piece. She allows Grand Maester Orwyle to remain in office despite his previous loyalty to the Greens, believing usefulness matters more than revenge. It's a practical decision, but it's also risky. Because trusting former enemies has never worked out particularly well in Westeros. She also appoints Torrhen Manderly as Master of Coin, giving him the unenviable task of fixing finances that are already collapsing. It's another reminder that winning wars is expensive. Holding power often costs even more, and despite finally wearing the crown she's fought for all her life, Rhaenyra discovers that being queen offers far fewer solutions than she imagined. The throne gives authority. It doesn't provide answers. While Rhaenyra works to stabilize her fragile rule, the episode quietly highlights another relationship that has become just as important as any meeting of the small council: her conversations with Ormund Hightower. Once bitter rivals, the two women now share a strange dynamic built on history, regret, and reluctant honesty. Instead of treating Alicent as nothing more than a prisoner, Rhaenyra continues to seek her perspective, almost as if she's trying to reconnect with the friend she lost years ago. This time, Alicent offers valuable insight into Ormund Hightower's personality. She explains that he has little patience for those he considers beneath him, especially anyone he sees as uncultured or weak. At first, it seems like a simple warning, but it becomes clear later that Ormund's greatest weapon isn't his army. It's his belief that only people like himself deserve power. That arrogance shapes nearly every decision he makes throughout the episode. Elsewhere, another alliance begins to fracture. Corlys Velaryon, frustrated by Rhaenyra's refusal to legitimize his sons, decides to leave King's Landing and continue fighting the Triarchy at sea. His departure isn't just about wounded pride. It reflects a growing concern that Rhaenyra is allowing politics to outweigh loyalty. Corlys has sacrificed almost everything for her claim, yet the recognition he wants for his family never comes. Instead of appearing himself, he sends Aelin to speak with the Queen. Their conversation becomes one of the episode's most emotional moments. Although they come from different backgrounds, Rhaenyra and Aelin realize they share something in common: fathers who struggle to show love in meaningful ways. Viserys often buried himself in duty and personal grief, while Corlys escaped into endless wars across the narrow sea. Neither man truly understood the emotional cost their absence left behind. That shared experience creates an unexpected connection between them, reminding viewers that the scars of neglect often shape leaders just as much as battles do. Unfortunately, Rhaenyra's fear of losing control also begins influencing her decisions. Determined to avoid appearing weak, she places strict limits on Ulf White after learning about his reckless behavior in taverns. Rather than earning his loyalty through trust, she chooses control, forbidding him from leaving the Red Keep or drinking in public. It's an understandable decision, but perhaps not a wise one. Ulf now commands a dragon, making him one of the most powerful people in Westeros. Treating him like a prisoner instead of an ally risks creating resentment at the worst possible moment. That tension only grows after he reveals that anti-Rhaenyra graffiti has begun appearing across King's Landing, with angry citizens mocking her as the Queen of Bastards. Instead of addressing the growing unrest, Rhaenyra orders the graffiti erased and the perpetrators hunted down. It's a choice that silences the symptoms without solving the deeper problem, hinting that her greatest challenge may not come from rival armies, but from the people she's trying to rule.